It's very hard to be successful at something you don't like. In China, they say something to do, somewhere to go, somewhere to love. It's that triangle. So you need a career that gives you great joy. So in order to create wealth, you have to first really find and unpick all your limiting wealth beliefs. If you're having difficulty making and indeed keeping money, go back and have a look at what your money beliefs are.
Can money buy happiness?
Yes.
You said that each person who chooses to consult with you or chooses to be therapized by you teaches you something in return. Like you become a better therapist in return. You feel that's true even now?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've trained almost 20,000 therapists all over the world. And I say to all of them the same thing, like, this is the best therapy training ever, but you have another set of teachers coming up. Every client you see will teach you something. And in fact, of all the books I've written, I think I've written 7. I'm writing 2 more at the moment. I always thank my clients because when you're teaching, you're learning. So I'm teaching and learning, giving and receiving. And it's a very nice balance. But I say as a therapist, every client you see is going to teach you something.
And you've worked with people from a lot of different countries as well, right?
Yeah, so many countries. Yeah, so many countries and professions.
Would you say that the impact of money on people is the same pretty much all over the world? Is it very varied depending on their own stories?
I would say it's very different. If you lived in a rural area, money would probably be slightly less important than community. So I think it depends where you live and what you do and what your career path is. For some people, it's less important. For other people, it's very important. First of all, your relationship with money is pretty much set before you're 7 years old. So if you have a parent who says, this job's going to kill me, this will be the death of me, or I can't find the money, I don't know where the money's coming from, that will influence the child because they hear it over and over again. We tend to learn what we live. So if you're having difficulty making and indeed keeping money, go back and have a look at what your money beliefs are. And then other people, they want to make money, but they say things like fat cat and filthy money and rich bitch. And then they're very dismissive. They think people with wealth are cold and unspiritual. And they'll quote the scripture that says, the pursuit of money is the root of all evil. And it doesn't say that. It says the pursuit of money at the expense of everything else is the root of all evil. So a lot of people think, well, I'm spiritual, I shouldn't have money, or, people won't like me if I have money, or people will like me for the wrong reasons if I have money. So in order to create wealth, you have to first really find and unpick all your limiting wealth beliefs. If you believe that wealth is bad, or that when you have money, you never know who your friends are, we know that 70% of lottery winners are totally bankrupt within 3 years, which is a huge figure. Why is that? Because they didn't earn it. They weren't familiar with it. And unconsciously, they got rid of all of it because of those 2 reasons.
How do you feel about money?
I think as long as you do good things with money, then you should have it. I think if you just keep it, that's a problem. But I think, I remember a client of mine who was not spiritual at all, but when he became phenomenally wealthy, he became very spiritual, began to pay for schools and pay for children's education. So the belief that spiritual people shouldn't have money is interesting because if you make a lot of money with the aim to be spiritual as you created, that's a good thing. And for me, for instance, when I was a therapist working, I had some money, but when I became a much bigger therapist, much bigger name, and trained 20,000 of it, I had more money. And now I have free audios. You can go to marisapeer.com and take free audios on money blocks, love blocks, health blocks, success blocks, any block you can think of. I have a program that we're putting into schools that's completely free. So I didn't have money. I couldn't give away all these free, I couldn't film them, produce them and give them away because I wouldn't have the money. So I think always do good things with money. Then it overcomes any guilt about, well, money is a dirty word, because it really isn't.
Can money buy happiness?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's do a step-by-step kind of answer on how money can buy you happiness.
I was reading about George Michael's sister, who 3 years after he died, actually died as well. And she'd inherited all his wealth. And I didn't understand why she didn't just go across to India and Africa. I've been to Zimbabwe and helped fund an orphanage. And that gave me great pleasure. So I think when you have a lot of money, go out in the world and see the difference you can make, building a school in a country, putting in water, putting in wells. So money can buy you happiness if your money buys other people's happiness. If you can say, okay, I'm lonely, I'm sad, But here I am, I'm sponsoring this child, I'm helping create a school, I'm doing something good, and other people are becoming happy because I have money, then that can't help but make you happy too.
Gotcha. I'm trying to kind of approach this whole topic from the perspective of someone who's studying in university or someone who's just graduated and is a young professional and doesn't have that much money to channel towards social causes. What's your advice to that person who is 20 years old, who's 25 years old?
You to do that later. No one expects you as you're trying to make it in the world and all the money you have is going into your studies and building a business. That's fine. You can wait until you've made it to do that, as long as that is your commitment that when I've made money, other people will benefit. I really want to help you grow, but you can help me back by liking and subscribing. If you like and subscribe, I can let you know what else is coming up to help you grow. We always want to grow and expand, not contract. So please like, please subscribe, and please write to me and let me know how I can help you. What kind of stuff would you like to hear? What kind of material? And I promise you I'll do it for you.
This is a deeply generalized question that I'm asking you. But do you have a bit of a cocktail recipe for someone who's 22, who's a fresh graduate in this big bad world, who's just beginning their life? What would you tell that young person? Imagine that they're your children.
I tell them several things. One is it's very hard to be successful at something you don't like. So go back and find your gift. We all have a unique gift. We have a unique skill set. And when you found that one thing that you love, go ahead and master it, because you might say, you know, I'm a very good writer, I'm a good speaker, I'm a good designer, but be even better. Once you've found your gift, I mean, we're so lucky we live in a world of social media. You can go on YouTube and you can find more and more courses and tutorials. So you need to perfect your gift. How can you monetize that? How can you perfect it? And when you've done those two things, you will have a career. In China, they say something to do, somewhere to go, somewhere to love. It's that triangle. So you need a career that gives you great joy. You need a relationship that gives you great joy. And then you need something else. And it has to be something just for you. And that could be collecting bees or butterflies or writing. But you need three things. So you'd need a wonderful career. But a wonderful career when you have no one to wake up with and come home to loses its luster very quickly. You need a wonderful relationship. But then you also need one other thing that is something that you love, and that could be painting, it could be running, it could be working out, it could be anything at all. But if you only have one of the three things, for example, you know, I'm working, I'm married to work, and I'm always working, but I go home alone, I wake up alone, and I don't have any hobbies or interests because it's just work, work, work. That's very bad for your soul. You must have three things.
So a career that you enjoy, which I found.
Yes.
A relationship where you feel a lot of love.
Yes.
But you also need that third thing.
The third thing that's just something, that could be reading, could be studying, could be anything at all, could be doing yoga. But you need one other thing just for you.
How do you even know that third thing?
Well, the third thing is what makes you happy. For me, I love swimming, I love Pilates, I love yoga, I love reading, I love being around my friends. So we all know something that we like to do just for us. So let's imagine you've got a really busy, engrossing career, and maybe a family too, but you still have to have one thing. A lot of women say, no, I go to the gym because it's me time, or I go for a walk because it's me time, or I shut myself away and meditate because it's me time. So that one thing, you'll already know what it is because it makes you happy. But it's something that you'll do on your own and it will give you immense joy.
Okay. Trying to think from my own perspective here, because I do.
Yeah, what is your me time?
I mean, I have a very deep spiritual practice, but on some level, I think my inherent personality is very warrior-like. So even with that, I have a sense of achievement.
Yeah.
As much as that spiritual practice heals me on so many different levels, I bucket that with my career at this stage of my life.
But you're very young and you're making it. You know, when you're on the way to massive success, it doesn't matter if you go, you know, I'm working 6 days a week, 7 days a week. On your way to success, that's really okay to be disciplined and dedicated. As long as you get there, you start to bring in other things like, I need to share my life with someone, and I need to find something that makes my heart sing. But it's absolutely okay when you're on your way. It's like when you're studying for exams to say, you know, when I'm studying, I can't do anything but study. When I'm writing books, occasionally I will shut down everything and just write all day and all night. everything else goes out the window. But that's not permanent. It's temporary. It's not permanent. And it's not all pervasive. It's just for a little while. So I think anyone watching this goes, I'm very ambitious. I'm building a business. It requires 14 hours of my day, 7 days a week. That's okay on your way to success. As long as when you've made it, you go, okay, now I can bring in the me time.
Understood.
Because you have to have balance. Nature requires balance.
You have to have balance between the three.
You have to have balance in your life. Without balance, you get burnout. So you must have balance of, and the balance is when I go to work, I'm at work. I'm fully at work. I'm fully on it. I'm fully committed. When I go home, I'm not answering emails. I'm playing with my children. I'm talking to my partner. I'm lying on the sofa reading a book. So the balance is switch on when you go to work, but switch off when you go home. And nowadays, of course, we never switch off. Even on a plane, we can still be doing emails and taking calls. So the balance is I'm on, I'm off. I'm 100% in, but now I'm 100% not in.
Marisa, I want to speak about balance a little bit.
Okay.
Because this is one of those narratives that we get a lot throughout our 20s in terms of, I don't think life is living without a sense of work-life balance.
Yeah.
But there's also a few narratives from the entrepreneurial world primarily that say that work-life balance doesn't really exist. And I've tried to mull over that thought rather than...
And why do they say that? Why do they say it doesn't exist?
I mean, so there's a very iconic Indian entrepreneur called Narayan Murthy, and he's solely responsible for my country's IT revolution. He made a public statement which was along the same lines recently, and he received a lot of flack for it. But in my eyes, I think what he was trying to say was the following. I think what he meant is that you need to have those extreme phases of work followed by perhaps extreme phases of rest.
You should be single-minded, and that's normal. And if you go to school, you work and then you have playtime. Every parent will say to their kid, do your homework, then you can have ice cream, you can go out to play. So it's okay to be single-minded on your way to success. If you're inventing something, you might be in your office inventing and again doing 16-hour days. When you finish the invention, you might go on holiday, you just rest. So that's okay. The work-life balance doesn't have to be I work Monday to Friday and I rest at weekends. It could be I work 3 weeks and I rest for the 4th week. So we live in a different world. 9 to 5 doesn't exist anymore. So it's up to us to say, well, where is the balance? Is it 1 day a week? Is it 1 week a month? Is it 1 weekend? But you can be single-minded and very driven on your way to success. But you must have work-life balance. If you don't rest, nature will just make you ill. I remember years ago when I was writing my first book, and I think the delivery date was the end of August, and my publisher said, hey, can we make it the end of July? I'm like, sure. But actually, I wasn't really ready. So I stayed up all night writing that book. And one day I woke up with the most awful headache. And it was my body saying, no, today you're going to lie in bed and do nothing at all. Because if you push yourself like that too much, the body takes over and says, here's an ulcer, here's a headache, here's a stomach ache. So if you don't find some balance in your life, your body will get sick in order to make you rest. And people say, I was pushing myself to the limit. I had a breakdown. I fell apart. I got so ill. And I remember that when I woke up with that headache, I knew my body was saying, today you're having a day off. And it's a shame I had to give myself a headache to take that day off, but I really needed it. And when you take that day off, enjoy it. Don't go, oh my God, I could be doing work. I've got all these emails. Say, today I'm like a battery. You're a human being, after all, not a human doing. You're supposed to be and not do. So not only should you take time off, when you take it off, don't do guilt. Say, I'm doing nothing and I'm having the best time. I'm doing nothing at all, and it's absolutely lovely.
I would love to know what you think of this theory where people say that every pain and every illness that visits your body is actually the manifestation of some kind of emotional thought, or that pain or illness is trying to teach you something and it won't leave you until you've learned it.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. When you get very sick, it's hard enough to be sick without someone saying, well, you created that. But there is no doubt that your thoughts are things. Every thought you think creates a physical reaction and an emotional response. So if you think, I'd kill for a day off, I'd I'd give anything to have a day lying on my sofa doing nothing. Of course, mine goes, oh, well, that's a direct command. You want a day lying around doing nothing? Let me give you the flu. Let me give you chronic diarrhea. So we have to be very careful because our body does try to make our thoughts real. Every thought you think is not a thought, it's a blueprint. And your mind, your body, your psyche are working to make that blueprint real. So if your blueprint is, this traffic's killing me, my job is hell, this client is driving me crazy, this is just making me go insane, because your mind has to make those words real, then you are going to have a problem. So we have to be if your words shape your reality, if you don't like your reality, go back and take a look at how you're describing things. So again, there's no doubt that words can bring about illness, but every ill person on the planet hasn't become ill because of their language. About 70% have. Doctors will tell you that 70% of people turning up at the hospital have real illnesses. And that's really the real problem. It isn't the problem. So I'll give you an example. I was a little boy who had eczema all over his arms and legs. It caused him a lot of pain. And when I was asking him a question, he was telling me that his mummy used to massage the new baby, and he wanted that. And he go, Mummy, can I be massaged? No, darling, you're a big boy. But Mummy, I want that. No, it's just for the baby. And then again, he said, but Mummy, I want you to massage me. She said, no. And of course, he thought a thought, and the thought was, I wish Mummy would massage me. But you see, this is the genie. Your wish is its command. He thought a thought, I want Mummy to massage me. And so lo and behold, he got eczema, and she was massaging him, putting cream and wet bandages on his body every night because he thought a thought, and the mind made that thought real. So if you think of something sad, your eyes will fill up with tears. Think of something embarrassing, you might go bright red. Think of hunger, your stomach will rumble. Think of sex, you can become very aroused. And the most obvious is the placebo. What you think of a drug will affect you more than what's in that drug. So we already know that every day we think a thought and the body makes it real. And for him, that was so interesting. But the presenting problem, which is I've got eczema, the real problem is I want Mummy to spend time. She's now invested in that baby and I'm being left out, and I want to feel I matter to her. So it wasn't really the eczema. It's she likes that baby more than me. I've been replaced. I'm not her baby anymore. So often when a client comes in, and we in RTT, we're very good at saying there's only 3 things wrong with you. Whatever is wrong with you, it's really 3 things. The mind's going to create eczema or migraines or irritable bowel or even panic attacks. It's going to protect you, to punish you, or to prioritize you. If there was an umbrella, it'd be all of those 3 things and everything else is underneath it. So it helps not to go, okay, well, I get headaches, I get breakouts, I get an upset stomach. Is that to protect me, punish me, prioritize? It's going to be one of those 3 things. And once you work that out, you're halfway to being over it completely. And here's the thing you can do, which sounds so weird. You're lying in bed with leaky gut and you have to go, what's great about it? The answer is, of course, nothing. But if you say, no, what is great about it? I was talking to an alcoholic. I said, what's great about it? He said, nothing. I said, no. If you had to answer that question, what is great about being an alcoholic? He went, well, no one asked me for anything. No one rings me up 2 a.m. and says, can you pick me up from the train station? No one asked me to drive them to work. No one asked me to come and look after their kids. No one asked me to lend them money because they know I'm an alcoholic. So actually, no one expects anything of me. And for him to be free of expectations mattered a lot. So it sounds a weird thing to say, what is great about this? People tell you, actually being ill is the first time I got to lie in hospital. People looked after me. Someone came and tapped my hand or get a vein up, and I never get any touch. And suddenly I felt significant. You know the word significant. One of our primary needs is to feel significant, to feel important, to feel we matter. And for many people, they only get that when they're sick.
Wow.
In fact, if you're a child and you're not sure you belong in the world, if you're not born with parents who appear to love you, the first thing a child does to reassure them that they matter is to get sick. Because getting sick is the very next best thing to being loved. Suddenly your mother's getting gluten-free flour, buying you special cream, coping with your allergies. You think, oh, look at that. She might not love me, but I'm important because look what they're doing. So many children whose needs aren't met, the first thing they do is to become sick. And it's so effective, they often never, ever give it up.
I think I'm doing something fundamentally wrong in my thinking process through the day, which is not letting me enter deeper realms of sleep at night.
Okay.
The question I have for you is, you've worked with Premier League footballers, athletes. I'm sure you work with Olympic athletes. I'm sure you've
I
worked with
do.
countless billionaires. When you notice a high performing individual who's not able to sleep well despite trying to sleep well and trying to do all the things right, what do you tell them?
Well, I tell them never to use the word trying, because trying implies failure. Trying to sleep is like saying, I'm going to try and pick up a pencil. You'd never say, I'm going to try and eat my lunch. I'm going to try and drink my water. So the very word trying implies, it's a misdirect. It implies failure. So when you say, I'm going to try to sleep tonight, that doesn't mean you're going to sleep at all. And in fact, the brain is very driven by words and what words mean. And our greatest fear as human is to fall. The fall, most of our fears come because of our thoughts. We think thought like, I'm scared of that mouse, or, oh, I don't like snakes. But actually the fear of falling is wired into us before we're born. So if you pick up a tiny baby, they do that. And they have a very powerful grip because they are wired to fear falling, even when they're born. That's why they have that startle reflex. So here's the thing, the human brain doesn't like falling. And if you go and went to the bird and look down, your stomach will just go, what are you doing? Your legs will turn to jelly, because if you look down from a high building, that fear of falling is wired in. So here's the thing, you go, now I'm going to fall asleep. You've got into bed. The last thing you want is to fall out of that bed. And we do another thing, we get into bed, we put on and go, I'm going to sleep, but you're not actually going anywhere. In fact, you're doing the opposite of going. You've turned off the light, shut the door, you got into bed, there's nowhere for you to go. So you have to change that word to sleep is coming to me. So it's really a matter of reprogramming the brain. And when your eyes roll up in that sleep state, you're going to alpha, and in alpha state, the brain is very programmable. So just stop talking about falling and going and say, every time I get into bed, sleep comes to me, descends upon me, stays with me. The other problem is a lot of people get into bed and think, they're all day, they're on screens, they're on the phone, they're watching, and then they get in and they go, oh, and the brain goes, finally, I've got you now. Let's go over all the things you coulda, shoulda, woulda done, because it's the only time when you don't have a screen on. So then you have to say to the brain, listen, I'm choosing sleep, send sleep. I'm not planning to go over anything I coulda, shoulda, woulda done. This is the time to sleep. You're a bit like a battery, We know with our phone, we plug it in and leave it alone. We don't keep taking it out of the socket every minute to look at it. So just like a battery, you must recharge.
You've just kind of given out a bit of a sleep meditation here,
Yeah.
right? This is what
definitely.
it is.
Yeah.
That you lie down, try staying on the bed.
You lie down, you lie down, you roll up your eyes, like very important. You want to go into an alpha brainwave, which is the most programmable brainwave. And you get into alpha by looking up. You breathe in and out 3 times. On the third exhalation, you keep your eyeballs up and you just close the lids. Now you're in alpha. And you can give yourself really good suggestions. But of course, the mind only responds to words that make a picture. So saying, I'm not feeling anxious is a silly thing to say, because the only word in there that is anxious. So you need to say things like, I'm so sleepy. I love sleeping. Sleep's coming to me. I'm enjoying 8 hours of beautiful, rejuvenating sleep. And while you're doing it, you try, I don't like the term, but be as still as you can. So let's imagine you're in bed, you're lying in bed, you roll up your eyes, but also keep your body still. Because when you're in the yoga position, the corpse position, you often tend to sleep because the body responds very well to stillness, a lot of strength in stillness. So be as still as you can, roll up your eyes. It does help to have a very, very dark room. I use sleep masks a lot because it's so bright in Dubai. And pitch a pitch black room will reset your metabolic rate, will reset your immune system. So there's a lot to be said. We forget that our ancestors didn't have light. They slept a lot. Now we sleep a lot less because we have so much light and light pollution. So it does help to be in the dark. But I can sleep in daylight anywhere, because I've trained my brain that when I roll up my eyes on a plane or even lying on the sofa, and tell my brain, send sleep to me. Now it always does.
So the more you keep doing the sleep meditation, the easier it becomes in the long term.
Yes, and also no baby says, hey, I can't sleep, it's too light. It's too warm, it's too cold. Babies sleep sitting upright. They sleep in your arms, they sleep in a chair, they fall asleep in a sandpit. Babies will sleep anywhere because they haven't learned that habit of worrying.
Marisa, growing up is a little painful.
Can be. Can be
be.
very painful. Depends who you grow up with, but yes, it can be very painful.
I think I'm still growing up, and I'm talking about growing up through life,
Sure.
not just growing up,
I know.
before college. This whole process of adulting is, on some level, now the thing is, I'm very careful about the words I'm using.
Good, that's a good thing. You see, your words shape your reality. If you don't like your reality, change your language. It changes everything, and it's so easy.
Yeah. I have a very long question to ask you about
Okay.
words and the effect on your reality,
Okay.
but we'll get to that question.
Okay.
Because first, I have to ask you further about a sentence that you just used. You said the brain being an alpha.
Yeah.
I would love for you to also give us some context on what other states the brain can be in.
Well, there's alpha, beta, delta, and theta. So there's 4 brain waves.
Okay. Please teach us.
Well, alpha is the good one because it's the one where you can program the brain to change. So, for instance, if you had a fear of birds, when you go into an alpha, something quite magical happens in that not only can you program the brain to think birds are perfectly normal and to be, so for instance, I was working with a girl last week who has a terror of mice and rats. I said, look, you don't have to like them. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. You don't have to like a rat. I don't like rats, but I can always be indifferent to them. Where could I be? So if I was in Africa, for instance, I was sleeping in this cave and I could hear little rodents running up and down the walls, but I didn't bother me because I could be indifferent. So the alpha brainwave is the brain where you can program.
You're the most coachable,
Most receptive in
while your
alpha.
brain is in
yeah.
the alpha state.
Yeah. Mm.
And honestly, this whole theme of this conversation, the data self-improvement and healing, it is actually about coachability.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
So this is the most important state for the brain according to you?
Yes. Well, alpha and delta. Delta, again, is the deep. The other two don't really matter. Delta is a deep, deep sleep state. So those two of them, you want to get into alpha if you're giving yourself suggestions, into delta when you want to have deep sleep.
When it comes to like the alpha state, what's happening biologically in the brain?
You're going into the subconscious state. So if you look at a baby, as a baby goes to sleep, they start to roll up their eyes. If you're actually stroking a cat or a dog, they often become very, very relaxed. So when the eyes roll up, when you go to sleep, if you come along and lift up someone's eyelid who's sleeping, it's all white because the eyes have rolled up. So when you get it, so when the eyes roll up, you're going into REM, rapid eye movement. You only get that when you're dreaming or in hypnosis because you're in a subconscious state. And you want to be in the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the powerhouse. The subconscious mind is always switched on. It's always on record. When you go, I don't know why I'm always angry. I have no idea why I can't stop eating cake. I don't know why I always self-sabotage or procrastinate, but your subconscious mind does know. So when you get into that subconscious, there's the answers. It's like a storeroom of everything. So you can go into the subconscious mind, and that's what RTT does. Someone will come in and say, I can't leave food. I'm unable to leave food. I'm a compulsive eater. And we go, well, first of all, no baby is born unable to. In fact, it's very hard to make babies overeat, almost impossible. They just bring it all up. So we know something already. You acquired that habit. So now we can get the mind to go back to when, because the brain always goes backwards. You might say, oh, I love the smell of lavender, reminds me of my grandmother. I love the taste of apple pie, reminds me of being at school. And I love those Barry White songs, reminds me of my first boyfriend. So music, we'll go back. The brain goes backwards to what something means.
Wow.
If I said, imagine you've got a little rag book. A is for apple, we'll go B is for ball, C is for cat. The brain's already gone back to when I was 2 to look at that little ABC book because it remembers everything. And you'll often find if you hear a song, you'll put the ending on it. So we know the brain goes backwards to what something means. So if somebody comes in and says, I can't leave food, you go, well, let's go back. But we're going back into the subconscious, not the conscious. The conscious has no idea. People wouldn't say, I don't know why I drink, why I ruin everything if they knew. but the subconscious knows. So when you go back into the subconscious, it will give you the answer to these questions. And now you have the answer, you're halfway there, because what RTT does is find the pattern, understand the pattern, change the pattern, find the pattern of compulsive eating, understand it, but also change it. And some therapy is very good at finding it. Another therapy is quite good at trying to change it. But when you do them together, find it, understand it, change it all in one session, the results are profound and powerful. But we are using that alpha brainwave to go back and find out why. Now, I never say to someone, what's wrong with you? I say to them, what happened to you? What happened to you that made you act like this? You couldn't have been born like this. And no baby says, don't look at me. Babies like being the focus. So when someone says, I can't, I'm no good with people looking at me. I don't like attention. I can't make eye contact. That's not inherited, that's acquired.